So what happened? I just pressed it.
I think you have to like after stop it.
Oh shit, it's recording. Alright. Oh shit. I was getting all panicked. I'm like, oh shit, it's recording. I gotta do something. Alright. So, what the motherfucker, dude? Alright, cool. Alright, so I did the sketch, and I basically, what I did was I just scanned it in, put it in Photoshop. You guys know the process. I stuck the sketch on a multiply layer, and I did an undertone painting. So an undertone painting is just like I'm treating it like literally like just a color book, where I pick the value and I'm just painting underneath. So I'm not messing with the line drawing at all. Does everyone understand that process? So you want to make sure you have a solid shape of your mech, or solid silhouette shaded in for your mech before you start getting all crazy with the colors. Okay. Next, I'm going to create another layer. I'm doing this thing where I'm locking in this layer I created. I'm pressing Alt, and I'm going in between the two layers, and it's linking it in. So it means, basically what it means is whatever I paint, it's going to stay within the layer. You see that? So if I paint color, if I paint value, textures, it's going to stay within that layer underneath. So what I like to do here is I generally like to just kind of paint in my my values. So it's my Viscom. It's just I'm gonna have my general light direction is gonna be kind of this top slightly angled point of view. Shoot, let me cover this real quick. Before I get into the actual form, one rule of thumb, which is nice to do before you get into your value and your lighting, is select a soft brush. It can be any soft brush, it doesn't matter. But I like to always create a gradient. So if my light source is here, right, meaning this is gonna have the hottest highlight, or the brightest area, right? And this is going to be the darkest area, correct? So what I want to do is I want to create just a slight gradation going from dark to light. And this is just a very subtle thing, but it's just a really good way to kind of maintain and control my values. What the hell? What's wrong with this? Does that make sense? It starts to look very cel shady, but it's initially what you want to start off with. Now I'm going to go in there and start doing my shadow side. Yep.
So when you do character design, is the process just the same for you, or you create a gradient first?
Generally, yeah. I mean, just keep in mind this is all like procedural,
Right.
meaning I'm only doing this for you guys. I mean, this is meaning there's no real process to painting, but you know, everyone kind of has their own like method of working. But this is my method of showing you guys of how to paint from like scratch to end. So, I mean, this definitely applies to everything, but it's not the only way to paint. That's what I'm kind of getting at. So you can kind of see, like, I have this this like kind of box-like form for this mech. You know, in the front, you can kind of see it just through the value changes there. Here you can get into all the little nook and cranny details, all the things that are going to be completely in dark. Does that make sense so far? Does everyone understand how to get to that point? Okay. Okay. Step 2, I want you guys to not come up with your own color palette. Okay, unless you're very experienced painting often or going landscape painting or doing things like that. To make it easier on yourself, go online. What I like to do is I like to kind of think about the materials that are on my mech and what it closely represents. So a lot of the materials that I want to implement for this mech is going to be more military-esque. So I looked at a lot of tanks or helicopters. And try to limit yourself, just choose one nice photo reference to pick from. So I chose this tank right here. And with this tank, you can create color swatches, or you can actually just have the tank reference open on a separate window. But here you can start selecting out all the different tones, like the different browns, and like you get these nice like weird greens and blues. And you know, even though this tank, when we look at it in this photo, it looks very monochromatic, but there's a lot of hue shifts, there's a lot of temperature shifts, there's a lot of materials and stuff that are being indicated here. So I want to definitely use that towards my advantage and, you know, towards my painting.
Isn't that also affected by your sky, like the environment?
Yep.
So are you choosing a photo reference? Are you limiting like the environment that your mech is in?
Well, I want to use this just as a general color palette. I mean, obviously there's going to be things that are being affected by the skylight or reflective light, but I want to just purely treat this as, these are my color choices when I go to like Home Depot or something. And you know, if you're going to paint your room blue, you kind of want to know what kind of blue, right? So if I want to paint my mech a certain tone, I just want to know like what are my choices. Because when you have choices here, you can actually start to implement it into this black and white painting. So I'm creating another layer here, and I'm putting on overlay, not color mode, and I'm going to choose this brown or this hue right here. Actually, I should put on color. It's on color actually. I'm just going to give it a color wash. It's a really fast, effective way of getting color. Create another layer. I'm going to put this one on overlay. I'm going to click, I'm selecting this darker value, and I'm going to start thinking about areas where I want different material. You know, not everything's going to be kind of like this, like tonal, like warm color. So I want all my machinery bits to be of a little bit darker value. Yep. Let's put this on. do this on a different layer.
You're using a regular brush.
Yeah,
Soft edge or hard edge?
this is just a soft brush.
Sorry, which one did you put on overlay? That layer 14?
Actually, this layer 17 that I'm painting, I'm just painting regular, and it's coming out very opaque because it's not like completely black.
Sometimes you would put on overlay.
I mean, I was going to put on overlay, but it's not wanting to. I'm not getting the colors that I planned for. So.
What did you use for your final line on that drawing? Is it a ball?
Yeah, it's just a ballpoint. Yep.
You ever draw directly on the computer?
On the computer?
Yeah.
I do, but I don't get as good of control, and I'm not as fast. Okay, does that make sense so far? What I'm doing here. So, when you start to get this like nice block out. I mean, this looks a little choppy, but you can kind of see how much your line work helps with retain a lot of the design. But as far as just like tone and color value, that's what I'm getting from my mech, right? At this point, I'm actually gonna do a gradation in the back. So I usually just kind of put a gradation here, or just like I'll just redo it. So I kind of just paint bucket and I fill the background. So it's right above my background layer. And go to soft brush, and then I pick a little bit of a darker value, and I want to just kind of push it back a bit more, just so that our eyes, what it does, it naturally focuses on the torso area. When you put a darker value here, you create more contrast, so your eyes are actually go more towards here. Okay. And then the floor, I want to make it a little bit lighter, because the light is hitting the floor, the ground, I mean. You can actually probably push this background a bit. See, when I do that, like the mech really pops out of the background, and you start to really get a sense of, not only the hue, but how much your mech is going to pop out. Now I'm going to put this on overlay. Go to my tank reference. And like when I look at this, I see a lot of like cool things like decals, a lot of weathering, different indications. There's things that are like darker, there's things that are fabric, there's things that are made out of metal, and it's very reflective. So I want to try to implement all of those subtleties into my mech as well. So I created an overlay layer. I'm gonna pick this green right here. This green right here. And I'm gonna give this piece a different color. Just a different shade. To just want to reinforce some of my lighting here. What's up? Yeah. Yep. No, I just use a regular stylus. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's preference. Cintiqs are actually really nice to paint on. But yeah, I just got used to painting on a regular Intuos. So does that make sense so far? Alright. I'm gonna just see what happens by 30. Oh, why is it doing that? Not too often. So I actually usually paint on one layer. Never really. I try to limit my like how many layers I have on a painting. Yeah, I collapse a lot. Like I'm gonna do right now. So at a certain point, when you get to like a really good block end, this is considered a block end. Don't ever consider this a final painting. This is just a really good color information. That's really about it. Okay, at this point, now you can start really going in, noodling, doing some of the texture details, decals, and rust.
Yes. This is still the silhouette, right? You didn't block, you didn't back or hand.
Yeah, I didn't merge it yet. I didn't merge it yet. So, but what I am gonna merge it right now. So
I was just gonna ask you that. Would you always keep? I would have keep the map always something with that. But you don't do that. Just
I do that, yeah. So what I do is like whatever's on here, because this is the whole entire mech that's on this silhouette. I copy it and I just I create an entirely different um, layer where it's just this by itself. Okay.
Before you get rid of everything.
Yeah, and also it's, for the sake of, I want to make sure I have the demo and layers for you guys. But
It's also so safe.
yeah, I mean it's nice to kind of, just in case if you need to go back on anything.
When you're like picking colors,
Oh shit.
you kind of do it from 1, 2, 3 and stuff, like when you determine how much of a color is you want to plot against specific.
When I'm picking colors,
Yeah, like you could do the whole thing in like that gray
right?
shape. Like, do you think of like 1, 2, 3 in terms of looking at choosing color and stuff?
Oh yeah, like proportion of color.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another that's a really good question, because that's why I have reference here. You notice how it's predominantly one color. Like if I were to pull up something else, like a boat or a car, for example, it's gonna be like 70% of this one color, and then 20% of another color, and then 10% of another color. So you're gonna have like these accents, right? But then you never want 50-50 or an even split amongst everything, because then proportionally, the colors aren't gonna want to harmonize that well, because you need to make sure that you have a good proportion and balance of color. That's otherwise it's gonna look so choppy, you know. So I'm gonna create a shadow layer here. So I usually just color pick the background, and I try to mimic shape here. Always try to go a little bit darker where the feet are, and then vignette out. I usually put a filter and I put motion blur on there. Find that out. Kind of a really quick, fast, cheap to kind of get a fakey shadow in there. Some weird brushes on here. So I'm gonna do my rust pattern. So what I usually do is I go on overlay. I put the brush on overlay mode and pick like a nice red. It's more of like this color, this brown tone. But when you paint that tone into your mech with overlay, you get like these nice like dark pits. It's a really nice way of weathering your mech up. You have like the rust like rotting right here from all that rain stuff. You get a lot of it on the feet area as well.
All those presets and brushes before paint.
Yeah. I'll give you all the brushes.
Is that brush in 24 which is put on that?
Yeah, if you guys have a thumb drive, I can give you guys all the brushes on here. It's all just been like passed around from artist to artist. Yeah, I know. What's up? He created a lot of the ones that I have, yeah. I have a lot of this guy named John Wallen. I have a lot of his brushes on here. Yeah. Yeah. You have a lot of guys that dedicate their time to that.
Use a lot of brushes, or do you just have a couple of
I usually have a couple that I just use. I try not to like have like 50,000 different brushes. It gets really complex. It can get complicated fast, and I won't know like what does what. And you'll actually spend like 80% of your time just sorting through brushes rather than painting. You know, you can create like nice soft surfacing just using like an airbrush. You create like nice forms like that.
John, at this point, do you still have your line work on a separate layer, or are you painting over it?
No, now I'm painting over it. Yeah, because I flattened everything.
Yeah.
So
So you find the line.
yeah. So you can start painting and editing and cleaning up. Man, this is some weird, like, I just need a regular eraser. Come on. Do you guys have any questions so far?
Now you're not painting. Because you want to change the shape, or
No, I'm just painting directly on top of the compressed layer.
I was also wondering about like outside from the environment.
Yeah.
Just wait for later for that.
Yep. Yep. I mean, when I'm doing a lot of the cleanup, like this will be more like the cleanup phase. You know, I'm just kind of focusing more on like making sure all my edges are nice and clean. Edges meaning like, you know, just these areas here. See, I was getting like a lot really fuzzy here. I just want to make sure that it's a bit cleaner. You know, before I go in and I mess with all the other stuff. Like before I do the environments and all that. But initially when I look at it from a graphic standpoint, that's kind of what I plotted out. Just slightly darkening it a little bit. More of that on top.
Hey John, what's your favorite movies?
I don't know, man.
And like, do you have any favorites at all? Like, anything that would say to put this on? I was looking at District 9 the other day,
Yeah, that was cool.
and that tripped me out. When I saw it, I blew my mind, but I couldn't get a grasp of the design. Everything was animated, it was really fast.
Yeah.
But it seemed like a complex mech.
Yeah, it's pretty.
So it's more like the exosuit, right?
You know,
It was kind of like a mech slash exosuit, yeah. I'd say
There's
so.
a guy in it sort of driving it, but
well, I don't know if it's,
well, I'm just looking at this website.
using beveled edges.
So you're using kind of an embossed to create highlights.
I'm using it to do pipes and like hoses. So really, this is what me and King Lee do all day. Such a fast way of getting like, yeah, just in hoses. Doing a painting of a mech. If it's from a drawing, it always takes longer. I don't know why. I think because you're working within a drawing. But if you're just painting a mech and you know you have the design in mind, it actually takes me like a third the time. It's weird. It's always like that. Yeah. Like painting a design of a mech. I don't know. What's up?
With references, I mean, like collages, pictures,
Yeah, like references, collaging pictures, or even just like painting. Really, I don't know. There's something about this, even though it's meticulous and it's not done as often. It just takes a little bit more time. Yeah, you're like refining things that you wouldn't be able to see or refine in your initial sketch or something. Or yeah. All right, at this layer, this is where I want to do my lighting pass. So right now it's kind of, even though it's being kind of lit, I just want to reinforce the lighting a bit more. So what I do is go into this little half circle, half like yin yang looking icon, and I go into curves. And when you pick curves, it brings out this adjustment right here. And this adjustment, usually I only tinker with this exactly in the center point. You only want to go diagonally up to the left or diagonally down to the right. And when you do that, you're evenly adjusting the values here. See how that works? So I'm going to do one just for the darks real quick, just because it kind of helps pop out contrast. Do that. I'm going to lock it within my mech. See how it punches out more? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint black into this. You guys understand that? Into that adjustment. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm only going to paint back in the areas where I want that to have effect. Generally, yeah, it's a mask. Generally, like one rule of thumb is anything that you want, like wherever you want like the most amount of focal point, is you want to create the most amount of contrast. You know, whether it's an environment, character, like that's why like characters are always lit in a certain way. You know, there's like a lot of lighting on the bust or the face, because you're getting a lot of contrast just in that area. But if you see something that's too evenly lit, it always looks flat. That's where you know the lighting's really bad. Like environments, like the worst time to paint an environment is like noon or something, or where the sun is facing everything towards you, like where if all the buildings were lit, you know, and the sun's behind you and it's facing you, everything looks like cards, because you're not getting any value shifts. So it just looks so flat and like boring, you know? So that's the same principle. Like anything, if you want anything that has a sense of attention, you want to create the most amount of contrast there. So this is just a rule of thumb, guys. Like what I like to do is just paint a circle, and you want to basically vignette out. Okay, so this is gonna be my most. I'm gonna have the most amount of contrast there. A lot of my lighting, a lot of my highlights, and a lot of my like attention to detail is gonna go in that area. Just with painting like John Singer Sargent, if you look at those like master painters, they had large brushstrokes are gonna be on the outside, and anything that goes in and gets tighter, you're gonna have more like tension or more like vibration per se. And those vibrations are like it's creating more focal point because you're having so much like information like compressed in that area. All right, so like when I see paintings of like objects or environments and it's like too equally painted, you guys are using the same brushstrokes everywhere. You're telling me like, hey, look here, 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 look here. You want to try to prioritize that. Same thing with lighting. You want to prioritize lighting. So I'm going to create another adjustments curves layer. All right. I'm going to bump it up. I'm going to paint black. And this is where I want to start painting my highlights and stuff. Remember, I want to keep this in mind, so I don't want to have like crazy highlights on here because it's out of my cone, like focal area. Okay, that's why we did the gradations, to kind of control the amount of highlight or white you're gonna get. So I want to get very I want to treat this like really lightly. I don't want to get too crazy with my whites here. Does that make sense? We went from this to that. Do you guys have any questions so far? Alright, I'm gonna keep going. What? What? Save check? Yeah. I learned that the hard way, man. Have you guys lost paintings or a lot of work? I'm sure we all have. I think my worst experience was I was doing an environment, like a key painting, and it was like really complex, and this was for Blur, and they always want like really complex shots with a lot of like action in there, and I forgot to save, and I had some files and reference and stuff in the Photoshop file. As I saved, it crashed because it was just so much, and my computer couldn't handle it, and it just had like that like circle of death on my Mac. I was like, dude, you piece of shit. Man, it was bad because the deadline was like the next day. So nice highlights like right underneath where these cut lines are. Nice shadow information here. Highlights here. You guys have any questions so far? Usually I go online and I just get like a ton of different like decals and these little things. These actually like really help sell the scale and the design on. I don't know, it just kind of makes it a little bit more believable. It makes it more fun too. I literally typed in caution decals and military decals. And you get, they're pretty high res at times too. You get like these cool little sticker things. Rescue. Oh yeah, that's exactly the same process. Yeah. No, I mean, I actually painted a skull, but like you'll treat the skull as like a decal, you know. So here, like, I'll go in and you start thinking about placement, like lock. I don't know. You still see that this is like still in the sketch phase. Like, I mean, you can still see a lot of the lines. And I mean, it's entirely up to you. Like, you can completely choose to paint it out, but I tend to just kind of keep a lot of the line work. I mean, it's just a style. Yeah. The one I showed you guys last week? Yeah, that one I literally got rid of all the lines. But when you get rid of all the lines, it's just gonna take you just a little bit longer to complete. So huh? What's the size of my painting? I don't know, let's check. Control Alt. It's about 2,300 in height and about 2,000 across. Yeah. Yeah, I think they print them out at higher res. I don't know. I mean, the file would have to naturally be pretty, you know, high in res. It'd have to be clear. Yeah. Do you guys have any questions? I often invert it. Wait, what? Actually, I actually don't really do that as much as I should, just to kind of check if the proportions look right. I mean, why do you do that? In one point of view, right? You know what I learned is, I mean, I probably should do that more, but I asked, I forgot who I asked. I asked like, oh, do you think, do you check, just, do you invert it to kind of check if your proportions are too much to the left or right? You're used to seeing things a certain way. And then the artist was like, why would I do that? Because I know it's gonna be in this orientation. It was like a weird, it's kind of a weird, like witty like comeback, but I was like, oh, huh? Yeah. Well, I think like I took it as that. I was like, okay, so I guess I won't really check it. I haven't really checked it since, you know? So, I don't know, like I don't really have an explanation for you. I don't really check it as much as I should. I mean, I think it's a good thing to do, but I don't make it like that's the first thing I'm gonna do, you know what I mean? But I probably should. Yeah. All right. I know everything gets all like whack. Yeah, I don't know. I like it. It's cool. Done. It looks cool, man. I buy it.
That's what that puppet
Oh, puppet warp. Yeah.
Actually, I know Kang Lee.
Yeah, King uses it.
He did a demo at the CDA. He's like, oh, what's Photoshop? He was using Photoshop 4. They didn't have Photoshop 4. Okay. Six? What's gonna be six? Line? Like, modeling?
There's a lot more 3D.
Yeah, the animation. So it's gonna be one package. Yeah.
They already have
You just
Do you guys have any questions as far as like just painting your line drawing?
Paint like has soft material like a netting or something over it.
Like a netting?
Yeah, like a netting.
What I would literally do is I would go, like I'll do like a hard, get a hard brush, and I'd create create like a net, right? Here, and then I would actually use the bevel tool. And you get like instant. Do that, but then you see how you get like these weird artifacts here? So you create another layer and you make it flat, and then go back and just fix those things. Make it not as apparent in these areas. Like some of this not going to catch as much light. And then what I like to do is, you know, netting has a little bit of noise. Like I'll create like a little bit of noise on the net. You see that? Just a little texture. Go back in. Get areas of more light here. So netting. Is that cool? And then underneath, because you have an object up on top, like you remember you gotta always cast shadows. So even though it's like subtle, you gotta make sure you cast shadows. That's another thing on this one, like it's not as like hard lit as it could be. Meaning like I don't have like crazy lighting, you know what I mean? It's not like that dark. But if you do, just make sure if you have any overlaps, you know, you're gonna get, for example, you're gonna get, you know, like casting. It's gonna cast onto itself. Objects like railings are gonna cast onto itself. Like things like this are gonna cast onto itself. Okay, like you gotta remember, like things like this are gonna cast. Does that make sense in terms of like harsh lighting? But I went with more of like kind of a, you know, like a sissy approach where it's more, it's like, it's I call it sissy. I'm not that brave, man. I'm scared. Yep. It depends. Sometimes I do. Sometimes, I mean, it just depends. Like, the more you spend time painting, then you're gonna lose more of the line work, you know. So it's more of a stylistic thing. Yeah. At work, it's mainly all painting. Yeah. Actually, I don't draw at work. I just paint. Yeah. This is the only time I actually draw with you guys. It's weird, huh? I don't know. Why is that? I don't know. Actually, it's just like at work. You know, a lot of it demands just more painting, and a lot of like painting on top of 3D models and stuff. Huh? It's faster. It is faster. But as an instructor, I want to say, hey, you know, you have to draw, and then you should paint. You know what I mean? But
Could you do it?
Photoshop's a tool, man. What?
Maybe some. I guess I don't know if they a 3D.
A 3D demo?
A model. Painting a model.
Paint over.
Oh, paint over a model.
Basically, it's
Yeah. In like Maya 3D. Oh, dude, I'm really bad at that. Like half you guys probably don't want to see that shit. Just throwing it out there, man. Sorry, Eugene. Maybe next time, just like when you and I are just hanging out. Yeah, I'll be like, yeah, dude, this is how you do it, man. You'd be like, oh snap. I mean, there's like existing assets. I'm really not that good. I'm actually really not good at all. Yep.
What kind of 3D models do you guys paint over?
Mainly um, like Maya, like high res, high poly, like like OBJ files.
Those materials,
Huh?
matte packs and ZBrush?
Wait, what?
Are you using matte packs and ZBrush?
No. Like when I do paint overs, I literally just. Are you talking about like setting up like shaders and stuff?
No, for ZBrush, just assign the materials to it, and each material, it's like, I don't know, like Scott Robinson did it, or
Sounds more of like a 3D thing.
no, it's like like Scott Robinson will do a sphere of a material,
Right.
we'll render that out. That's basically all it is. Background.
Oh, that's cool.
Take that information and put it onto a 3D model,
Yeah, I haven't done anything like that. I should look into it though.
and just
That's pretty high tech, man.
stick all your layers and overlay.
Yeah, but I think somebody like John's got a lot of experience. I think it's faster paced than something think like this. I saw
Um,
on a demo though, what they did that.
I actually, yeah, like I tried at work. King was like, "Hey, you should try model this out," and I was like, "Okay." And dude, it took me so long because I was like messing with like I was like, "Oh, how many tries do I have in here? Like, fuck, like, is this right?" Like, and I couldn't get the vertices right, and I was learning the tool, and I got so frustrated. I was like, "Dude," like slammed turned the program off, literally into Photoshop, and I ended up doing like 6 paintings of mechs. I was like, "Here, dude, fuck modeling. Here it is, man." But no, I'm not saying modeling is bad. Modeling is really good, but I'm just not a modeler, man. But I really appreciate it. It's fantastic. Oh, thanks.
You can live without it.
All right, hold on. Oh, one more thing before we continue. I created a soft brush, or I didn't create. I picked a soft brush. You go into screen. What I want you to do is pick the value of the ground, and just like hit it slightly on the top, because you're gonna get like this weird bloom effect, and this happens a lot in photos. I don't know why it happens, but this actually helps make your mech look a little bit more realistic with the lighting. Yeah, it's refracting. Yeah, yeah. You tell him, Eugene. I'm guessing too, man. I don't know. I just like I see it, and then you go to color dodge. If you guys haven't used it, this is awesome. Got a little light bulb here. Yeah, dude, Moto's sick. Yeah, Scott uses it a lot. All right, let's take a 10-minute break, and let's get back, and then I need to cover the environments. Does that look okay? Yeah. Bastards, man.
Oh, you should, you got Camtasia, you should stop it.
How do I stop? Okay.